Our original plan was to spend a day in Boston, hang out, then drive up through Vermont and hit Harpoon's Vermont location. But after Sam Adams said how nice the Boston location was, we made a few quick calls, shuffled our schedule around, and went on over. And I'm glad we did. They have a beautiful, recently renovated tasting room serving up the classics as well as some pilot batches that were just delicious. And of course, you have the brewery, which is visible from the tasting room. One thing about having a city location is that you can only expand out so much. So they did the next best thing, expand up. Multi-level facility to keep the space shortage in control, with cool gadgets like a keg lift, make this facility much different from the others we've seen.
But I have to say, that tasting room is definitely the thing that stands out most. If only they had something like that near me. After walking around the brewery, getting sweaty, taking a break in the keg room to cool off, and tasting a beer or two, we got a chance to sit down with Charlie Storey, the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Harpoon, and asked him the usual penetrating interview questions.
Well, my name is Charlie Storey. I'm the Senior Vice President of Marketing here at Harpoon Brewery. Live in the area, grew up in the greater Boston area, joined Harpoon 17 years ago, having had a long-standing relationship with the founders, Rich and Dan, that went back to college. The company was growing fast. I said, well, instead of looking around Boston, why don't you just come work with us? And I never looked back. Well, the Harpoon Brewery is interesting, I think, in a number of ways. It's a pioneering craft brewery. And the genesis of Harpoon was my classmate traveling in Europe and finding these great beer drinking experiences in Europe that were so different from ones in the U.S. Some people go to a European town, the first place they go to visit is the art museum. Well, Rich and Dan, the first place they went to was a local brewery. And not only do they have great beers and a great variety of beers, but they felt this very strong beer tradition and beer culture that didn't really seem to exist in the U.S. And they fell in love with it. And their thought was, this is really powerful. We enjoy this. If we could bring this back to back to the United States, probably other guys and gals like us would enjoy it too. First Harpoon employee was a graduate of the Master's brewing program at UCal Davis, because obviously, Rich and Dan were beer lovers, not beer brewers, so they needed someone to make the beer. So that's how Harpoon got started, and I think that story continues right through to this very day. I've got a lot of great stories. Hard to pick out a favorite one. One that's pretty memorable for me is driving home from one of our festivals in Vermont, and I was just so tired. I'd worked pretty much a 24-hour-a-day shift from producing these festivals, which is a big part of what we do at Harpoon. So we'd wrapped up after several days of preparation and several days of actual execution on Saturday, Sunday. So it was Sunday night, it was quite late, and I was driving home and I was listening to the radio, and it was a call-in show. And funnily enough, I happened to come across a call-in show about beer. It was a person talking about our festival and our beer. And it was just so gratifying, because I was at that point of exhaustion where I thought, sort of almost to the point where, I want to go home. I couldn't care less about beer. Don't even talk to me about beer. I had to take a little time off from Harpoon but this person was talking about it, and I felt so proud and pleased, and it validated everything I'd done and all the hard work my colleagues had done. So that, I don't know, it's kind of a corny story, but it was really nice to hear. At Harpoon, we really feel committed to our original mission, which is to be a local brewer, to welcome beer lovers to our brewery. So we deliver on that every day here in Boston and Windsor, Vermont. New England is our focus. We do sell beer outside of New England for a total of 26 states. We haven't expanded our territory in over 3 years. Our vision is to keep doing what we're doing. There are no plans for geographical expansion. There are no plans for new breweries. There are plans to continue to expand brewing capacity and keep serving the markets we're currently in. But there's sort of Harpoon 2.0 exist on the horizon with the reinvention of what we are. Not a bit. We're keep doing what we're doing. Well, I'm drinking it. So I've got in my hand a Harpoon IPA, and it is my favorite beer at Harpoon. As a beer lover, I find myself often being captivated by maybe our latest 100-barrel beer, or a pilot batch that we produce in the pilot system, perhaps a seasonal, and that's sort of my for a period of days or weeks. That'll be my go-to beer after work. I'll go to the tasting room, grab one of those beers. So pleased to have it after a hard day's work, and then it's gone, because some of those are fleeting, whether it's a seasonal or a pilot. So I'll pour myself an IPA, and I'm never disappointed. It just feels like coming home again. The IPA is a wonderful beer. It's balanced. It's always been my favorite. Always will be my favorite. So I have these little kind of adventures off to other stuff, but Harpoon IPA is my favorite beer.
And of course, after all was said and done, they informed us that if we came next week, we would have been in town during one of their big festivals. It figures. But regardless, it was an awesome place to go, and I'd recommend it to anyone and everyone to stop on in if they're in town. Hopefully, I'll make it back up that way and see what Oktoberfest is all about. So we stayed until the place closed up shop, and like a couple of cowboys, rode off into the sunset to our next destination. From the Baltimore Post-Examiner, I'm Tom. See you next time.